Hi, Rich Mullins fans. My name is Danl Blackwood, and I've been asked to share some of my memories of Rich Mullins. Um, I, my first exposure to Rich was like probably very many people. I heard Awesome God on the radio. This was probably 1989, and in our small group Bible study, one of the gals was say, "Hey, we're going to go see the Awesome God guy." I was living in Wichita at the time. We went to Central Park Christian Church. I knew nothing about Rich at the time. We go to this concert, and I was completely blown away from the very beginning. And my most vivid memory of that concert was and I didn't know any of Rich's music at that time. It was the first time I heard "If I Stand," and I was a little surprised at not knowing that was his church where he attended. I was a little surprised at how everybody in the entire auditorium was singing along in like 12-part harmony. It was amazing. It was an incredible worship experience. I remember going and buying a CD, and being curious about this. The check was made out to Kid Brothers of St. Frank. Shortly after that, I had met Kathy. Her air name was Kathy Sanders on like 99 Christian radio station in Wichita. We met at a after-school campus crusade event near where I lived in West Wichita, and got to know Kathy. Come to find out that her connection with Rich. Of course, became a huge fan of Rich, and also about that same time, early 90s, I was dabbling in the internet, doing what at the time was called rec.music.christian newsgroup postings. There was probably a couple dozen, 25, 30 people that I communicated with to let them know what I share with them, the concerts that Rich was going to be playing, and then in '94 I got involved in the web, started what I called a mailing list archive. I'd send out emails and then post those emails on a web page, which I guess today would be called a blog. It was there was probably 50 people on the mailing list back then. It grew. And whenever Rich would do concerts around Wichita, of course, we went to go see him. And my favorite memory of all the concerts, we would say, okay, we're going to go hear Rich in concert, and I liked his songs, but it wasn't his music I was going to hear. It was to hear him speak. It was to hear him minister, and it was that. Those are my strongest memories of the concert. And at one point, Kathy Sprinkle, her name is not Kathy Sanders was the air name. Kathy Sprinkle called me and said, "Hey, Rich and Mitch and Jim Denning Jr., Rich's manager, would like to visit with you about this webpage thing." So we got together at Quiznos downtown, talked about. At that point, it was a full-blown webpage. I told him, I said, well, one of the first things we need to do is register a domain. It would make sense to get richmullins.com, richmullins.net. And Rich's comment was, well, does it have to have my name on it? And typical Rich fashion. And so he said, well, how about, could it be related to Kid Brothers? And which is what we ended up with, kidbrothers.net. And then the web page became official on that domain. The mailing list being on kidbrothers.net/RMML, Rich Mullins mailing list. And that meeting with them at downtown Quiznos was actually 1 month before Rich passed, before Rich was tragically killed. And the communication on the mailing list, of course, exploded to a couple thousand people. It was a rough time for a lot of people. I will never forget being lucky enough to go to a lot of his live concerts. Now these days, as Facebook has taken on, I'm connecting with people on the Facebook group. I co-administer the Rich Mullins Facebook group, and there are several. The one that I'm involved in is just Rich Mullins, and there's so many people that never got to see Rich live, and are just now becoming familiar with his music, and so it's an honor to be able to help in that, and I'm glad to make this video. And I guess that's it. Have a great day. Blessings to you.
When the prophets had grown tired of being so inspired, but rarely being heard.
Hi friends, Rick Lee James here, and I'm so honored to be a part of this special about Rich Mullins. Rich Mullins was a great musical influence on me, and I still think that a lot of the ways that I want to write and try to write are because of the influence that he had on me. He is one of the artists that whenever I was learning to write songs, and when I would be at the same time growing in my relationship with the Lord, his songs moved me so deeply that I would find myself in times of prayer saying, God, please, if there's any way that you could just use the music I write, even in a fraction of the way that you used music that Rich wrote, to affect people in the way that Rich's music affected my life, what a blessing that would be. Whether or not songs ever got big commercially or anything like that at all, there were just profound moments that I still have when I listen to music and albums like A Liturgy, A Legacy, and A Ragamuffin Band. There are moments that the Lord speaks in that music, and songs that are so honest and bare, or even like the Jesus record, that the songs didn't come out until after he passed away and other artists recorded them, that I found them to be such beautiful poetry, but poetry that was like guided by the Holy Spirit. There were ways that it spoke to my heart and touched my heart that I can't think of any other writer that has affected me in that way. I am so honored to be the first to release Rich's song Thunder, which never got a release while he was alive, and I couldn't believe that I was given the chance to record one of Rich's good songs that we never really got to hear, and it was co-written by Lowell Alexander and Phil Nash, and it just has such a great way of talking about the disruptive grace of Jesus when he comes in to clear the temple, and what it means that we have a God who enters into our suffering and into our pain, and how many times in Scripture there are a lot of references of when God is on the scene, it sounds like thunder, and whether it be when Jesus is at prayer or whether we read in the Psalms about the Lord, the power of the Lord, and the sounds like thunder and the flashes like lightning, and so anyway, Rich, I'm so glad that he availed his life to God in the way that he did, and I think he still is teaching us what it means to be songwriters. Rich wasn't a perfect guy by any means, and you can find out a lot about him in his books and in books about him, and he would be probably the first to tell you that he didn't necessarily want to be a role model for everybody, but there was something so powerful about his relationship with the Lord, and how he longed to be so authentic and so real with God. And that's what I hope we can also, as songwriters, strive to be authentic and real, and people who want to be what God has for us in our lives. So thank you for letting me be a part of this special, celebrating the life and the ministry and the work, the songs of Rich Mullins. I think that his music is going to have a lasting effect for generations to come, if not even longer than that. So God bless you guys, and thanks for listening, and check out Thunder, my new album. If you haven't had a chance to hear it yet, the title track is a song that we have because of Rich Mullins. So thanks everybody.
Hi, my name is Ted Yoder. I am a musician from Indiana. I'm supposed to be giving this video telling about how Rich Mullins has affected my life, my music. This is neither written out nor well thought out, but I wanted to get this down there and share it with those that wanted me to do this. So I have been a Rich Mullins fan for many, many years. Way back, going back to, oh gosh, mid-'80s for sure. So it was about late 90s, no, I'm sorry, late 80s when I first heard Rich Mullins play the hammer dulcimer. And then I saw him play it in concert, and I was immediately enamored with the instrument. So it was many years later. It took me like 12 years to find one, and I finally did. My wife and I got married in 1997. We were living down in Arkansas at the time, and she took some wedding money that we had and decided to buy me a hammer dulcimer, and that's where it all started. Of course, the first songs I've ever played were Sometimes by Step by Rich Mullins, and started working on some others. I now am a full-time musician on the hammer dulcimer as my main instrument, and I feed my family doing this because of Rich. He actually passed away, when my wife and I were on our honeymoon, and so he's always been a very deep part of my life, and I continue to honor him as much as possible with my music, with my life, with my hammer dulcimer playing during the concerts and stuff. I usually play at least one or two songs of his. I have a current album that we're starting work on that should be released before Christmas, and it's going to have 3 songs in tribute to Rich Mullins on it. And yeah, it's I often tell people that Rich Mullins was more influential in my life than any pastor I had ever sat under, and I've been raised in church my whole life, and I've had many good pastors, but Rich Mullins had a childlike godliness that I admired and I still admire, and I try to pass on to my children as well, and again, just remember him as much as possible. So I know that sounds like Rich would probably be uncomfortable with that type of praise, but there it is. I now make a living playing an instrument that Rich Mullins inspired me to play, singing his songs, and making my own music and raising my children. And he's still a wonderful, well, I'm sure he's a wonderful man, but I miss him greatly. Thank you.